Hey guys, I'm Amanda Mayo at Discovery Park of America in Union City, Tennessee, and this is a moment of discovery. A little bit of background on me is that I am a paleontologist at the University of Tennessee at Martin. Today, I'm going to talk to you about some common misconceptions that people have about paleontologists. The first misconception, and the most common misconception I get, is that paleontologists only study dinosaurs. That is totally not true. Paleontologists can study any organism that was alive over 10,000 years ago and that was naturally preserved. So I do something called paleoentomology. Paleoentomology is really cool because it is the study of prehistoric insects. So when you hear about dragonflies with a 3-foot wingspan, that's my cup of tea. So paleontologists do not just study dinosaurs. They can study footprints of other animals, they can study trilobites, they can study all kinds of animals. It doesn't just have to be dinosaurs. The second misconception I always hear about paleontology is that Indiana Jones is a paleontologist. Indiana Jones is not a paleontologist, he's actually something called an archaeologist. And there's actually a difference in between the two, but some people use them interchangeably. A paleontologist is someone who studies fossils or animals and organisms that are over 10,000 years old and that were naturally preserved. So an archaeologist is a little bit different than that. Yes, they do study old stuff, but archaeologists only focus on the remnants of human civilization. So they focus on human interaction and what humans have left behind, and paleontologists study about what animals and plants have left behind. And there's a time difference too. My favorite joke is, what is the difference between grave robbing and archaeology? I'll let you decide about that. The third misconception that people have about paleontologists is that paleontologists are all men. That's what we see in Jurassic Park, that's what we see in all the goofy dinosaur movies, is that paleontologists are all men. Well, I'm not a man and I study paleontology, so that's one of the misconceptions people have. So I always love talking about women in STEM these days and how we're making great strides to represent ourselves more. So paleontologists don't just have to be men, scientists don't just have to be men either. I am the person that proves that wrong. Another misconception is that we find full skeletons. This is one of my favorite stories to tell when I'm at Discovery Park because it's really hard to find a full skeleton. And when we find them, they're always really brittle, or not always, but most of the time they're really brittle and they're really hard to excavate and keep them intact. So intact is when we get all the bones together and they're not damaged at all. So think about these things, they're over 1,000,000 years old and they've been underground or they've been exposed and they've been through the rigmarole. They've been through erosion, they've been through deposition of soil on top of them, they've been through water rushing past them for thousands of years. These things have seen it all, so they're not always going to be perfect specimens. So when we get a bone, it's really rare for us to find a full skeleton. So we don't always find the full skeletons. Something I also like to tell people is that the skeletons in museums are not always real. So sometimes we do get full skeletons that are real and they'll be in museums. If you've ever heard of Sue the dinosaur, there's a whole movie and a book about her that's really good if you're interested. Sue the dinosaur is on display at the Chicago Field Museum, and when they tried to display her head with the rest of her body, her head was too heavy, so her skull had permineralized, so it had turned into a rock basically. And I'll do another video about that later, about ways of fossilization. It was so heavy they couldn't stick it with the rest of her body on the suspension thing that they built. So her head is actually overlooking the rest of her body at the Chicago Field Museum. So I think that's really cool. But when we have full skeletons at museums, a lot of times it's because we found those skeletons in other countries. So if we find them in Mongolia or China or Argentina, we don't want to take those skeletons away from those countries because those are those countries' like national history. Because if those dinosaurs are found there, that's where they roamed tens of millions of years ago. So we don't want to steal or we don't want to take their dinosaur bones because we want them to be able to show that to their people. So the way we get around that is we send scientists down to those countries. So one of my favorites is the story of the Argentinosaurus. We actually sent scientists down to Argentina to make molds and casts of the bones so we can make copies of it. And that way we can prolong it and we can share it with even more people. So you can see more dinosaurs and stuff like that. So we can see them in museums. So if y'all have any questions, you can comment on this video on YouTube, or you can comment it on this Discovery Parks page. I talk all things paleontology, so if you have any questions for me, I would love to answer them. Um, for more moments of discovery, you can visit us at Discovery Park of America in Union City, Tennessee on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'd love to see you visit me. Bye, guys.